Hey, solos. So you're going to Walt Disney World all by yourself and you want to have the most ultimate EPCOT day. What would that look like for you? What would that look like for me? Well, solo spoiler, you're going to learn what that's like for me, and then you can compare it against your own kind of thoughts and feelings about EPCOT. And that's the great thing about solo travel to Disney World. It can really be anything that you want. So I guess prepared to be angry with me or completely on the same page as me. Hi, everyone. It's Samantha. Olaf may not know who Samantha is, but now you do, and welcome to Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World, now in its second year. So this episode is going to be a walk around Epcot based on my memories and my own just like love for Epcot. I know a lot of you loved the Magic Kingdom like walkthrough, the audio walkthrough that I did a couple months ago, and I thought like, why not do a I want to say a pointless. I mean, it doesn't really have like a goal, I guess, this episode the way some of the other ones do. So I guess it is without a point, but it's not a pointless episode. It doesn't walk around Epcot. So let us do that walk together. All right. So as you know, if you've been listening to the podcast, you can get the links to all my social media down below. It is a bit of a hiatus right now because of other pressures and things like that, other things happening outside podcast land, but I am there and around, and I apologize for my slow responses. I also have a Patreon. It is very inexpensive to join, and you can get other behind the scenes things and reflections on all the episodes and pictures of my cats who are currently fighting right now. You can listen to this on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube. Last episode, I talked about a problem I'm having with YouTube. I'm still having that same problem. Nobody has come to my rescue yet. So please help me. Please help me. Like last week, for example, the episode published the way it was supposed to, exactly the time that it was supposed to, and a few of you got to listen to it. That's great. And then when I went on Wednesday, so a day after the episode was published, it was then private again. So I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I need help. So please, somebody help. All right. Let's get into it. All right. So I just want to talk about how busy and kind of just like stressed and overwhelmed I am just generally. I talked a little bit about politics last week. I'm not going to talk about politics more this week, but that's certainly in the air. But oftentimes when I am busy like this, I often will be drawn to Disney as a place to think about as kind of like, I don't know, like a goal or just like a happy place, you know? Other times I find it really, really overwhelming. Like there's just too many things. There's too many things to think about. There's, I don't know. It's really interesting. It kind of goes back and forth. And then all of a sudden I'll see something Disney related and I'll just get this like pang of longing for Disney. And I think that this kind of oscillation between like all in for Disney and then needing to take a step back is actually quite common amongst solos, really common amongst many adults, for example, who are like, know how wonderful Disney can be, but also sometimes that isn't always what you need. And so I actually have recorded this episode already, and I decided to re-record it because I've been so like in my head about so many other things that are not Disney related. I really actually wanted to place myself back at Disney World in Epcot specifically, which this episode has been on the schedule for over a month now. I really want to place myself back in Disney as a way to like bring some of that good spirit energy back into the things happening in my head. And speaking of things happening in my head, so oftentimes in the mornings when I do my first wake up, I'll put on the New York Times Daily podcast and I'll listen to it as I slowly wake up. Although sometimes I will fall asleep mid-episode. I usually put it on a sleep timer so it'll just go off and then whatever, I'm late. But I work from home, so it's not a huge deal. But last week, this actually happened twice. The episode from last week, like this podcast episode, was in the next docket, like in the next playing for Apple Podcast. So I fell asleep listening to the New York Times talking about whatever, and I woke up listening to me talk about Disney, and I didn't clock that it was me right away, but I was just like listening because again, I was sleeping. I just was like listening to these like little bits of information, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly it. That's a very important point. I would have said the same thing. And then I realized, oh, no, that's me. And that happened twice this past week. And so again, when I was talking about how like busy my brain is, I was like, I really want to bring myself back into EPCOT and maybe maybe wake up to me talking about EPCOT and be thrilled by it. When I listen to the episodes myself, I'm so concerned about audio things that I wish I had fixed that there's very little pleasure in re-listening to them. However, listening to it kind of randomly, not realizing it was my own product, being half asleep and doing that, I was like, yeah, girl. You have some excellent points about Disney. So here's going to be some more excellent points about EPCOT. Or not. Again, as I started this episode, everyone has their own association. So what my hope is in doing my own kind of mental walkthrough through EPCOT is that you will be able to associate with your own walkthrough and whatever that looks like. And maybe in your brain, you're like, oh, you missed this thing and you missed that part. And that's great. Like, do your own walkthrough. I think that's just, it's so special the way that layers are so layered on a place like Disney, a place like EPCOT, that, yeah, it's really special. And I mean, as some of you know that I'm writing a book about ghosts and history education, and so I want to say a lot of things about like layered memories and archived experiences and nostalgia and all this stuff that's really based in my book, but I won't do that. Let's just get right to EPCOT. So I know a lot of people do the Mexico or Canada, which place should you start in World Showcase? But for me, the best place to start at EPCOT is in the Skyliner stop. Coming in those doors by International Showcase, like that to me is the best way to do EPCOT. So in one of the early episodes, I talked about how I think of EPCOT in like 3 different ways. I think of it as old land stuff, which is not appropriate because it's not old and it's not all land, but there we go. Then I think of new space stuff, which again, it's not new and is not all space. And then I think of World Showcase as like the main EPCOT. And then there is like a space in the middle that I just kind of think is like negative space, not negative as in like bad, but negative as in having no distinct personality. But like that is the personality. And look, I know all that's incorrect, and I know that you will have other associations, but that is how I think of EPCOT. So I'm really just going to be focusing on World Showcase in this episode because that is what I consider, quote, the real EPCOT, and like the rest of it is just other things at EPCOT, if that makes any sense. So when I'm thinking of the best way to do EPCOT, I'm not thinking Canada or Mexico, the way a lot of people will talk about on social media. I am really thinking about coming in the location right outside the boats, right outside the walkway from Boardwalk and Yacht Club, right outside the place where the Skyliner stops. To me, that is the best way to start at EPCOT. And that's why I love, for example, staying at Pop Century or the Caribbean Beach Resort or Riviera if I could afford it, because I can use the Skyliner to get off at EPCOT in like the most important place. So when you go through those gates and it's never really that busy, you get this beautiful view of the bridge overlooking the water. You can see this beautiful like flower mosaic. You can see France and like there's that little hill. So you're really feeling like you're going towards a destination. Sometimes there are characters there. Sometimes they're rare characters that are there. And it's just such a special, intimate kind of place to begin EPCOT. It feels so different than the other like main entrance, which is so big and so formal and so, I want to say, I don't know, I guess whatever the opposite of intimate is, it just feels very concrete. It doesn't feel lush and full of water and plants and sunshine the way this other entrance does. So I love coming in through this entrance. Oftentimes when I'm going to EPCOT, there is some merchandise in the England Pavilion that I want to go look at. So although I am going to go through France, I will often stop at England first and just check out to see if the merchandise that I wanted is available in the stores. And yeah, this has happened a few times. I mean, I have to walk around with the merchandise, but I won't have it in my brain, and that's the most important part. Then as I move towards France, again, I go over that bridge. I look to my left, like towards the water, and there is a little platform there. Sometimes it's open, sometimes it's closed, and it's often will be closed because there's going to be a private event like a wedding or something. And I always like to look at that area and like send really nice thoughts to a couple that is getting married there. I think that's a really beautiful place to get married. And I often wonder when people get married like deep within the parks. I mean, the Italy pavilion's not that deep within the park, but still I wonder like, does everyone have to like walk through the whole World Showcase to get there? Like, how does all the logistics work? And when I look at this particular place on the way to France, I think, oh, the logistics are really easy. Because of the entrance is right there. I actually don't think that is true. I know there's a lot of backstage entrances that we as regular customers don't necessarily see, but anyway, I do think of that. Also, as I go over that bridge, I will look for the PhotoPass photographer that is usually there so that you get this beautiful photograph of the Eiffel Tower in the background. And they often have really nice props and stuff like that. And I've had such great experiences both waiting for photos and talking to other people who were there, like especially during Dapper Day, and talking with the photographers themselves. As I said in last week's episode, I think I have really enjoyed the experience of having the PhotoPass memory maker because of the experience of just taking the photos. I haven't really done anything with the photos. Sometimes it feels like I should, but it's really just these memories of interacting with the cast members that I just feel are so special. Once I get to France and I see that first booth there with the pillar that has all the posters, the French posters, I immediately think of this family story that we tell when I was maybe 8 and I was there with my mother and my sister. And I've always always been the eldest sister in the family, if you know what I mean. Like I've always had a lot of big sister bossy energy. And so I remember when I was 8, I was arguing with my mother in that location about directions, where we were supposed to go. My mother said one way and I insisted that we were going in the wrong direction. And so she asked a cast member, and the cast member said that she was right. And so my mother looked at me and she wanted to point in the direction that we were supposed to go, but she had been so frustrated with my attitude. I say I was 8. I think I was a little bit older than that, but anyway, she was so frustrated with the attitude that I had giving her. She turned around and gave me the middle finger. And we were all shocked because, that isn't really how we treat each other in our family. I was like, what? And my mother was like, what? And the cast member, who was like a grown man, it's not like it was a kid from a college program or whatever, he was like, what? He just kind of turned around and walked away. And so whenever my mother and I go to Disney now, we always laugh at this particular memory there. And that's what I said, at the beginning of this episode about the layers of memories, that I don't remember really anything else about that trip. But we all remember that particular experience. I love the France Pavilion, and I really wish it wasn't as busy as it is. I know a lot of people love getting the macaron and everything and the ice cream sandwiches, but I have always found that area so busy that I've never actually tried either. Now, in Toronto, I'm going to say this for in a couple different ways. in this episode, so I apologize in advance. But in Toronto, where I live, we have a very international food scene, and so I can get delicious French pastries not that far from my house. So I don't feel like I'm missing out too much by not going to the bakery or to the macaron shop or to the ice cream shop when I'm in the France Pavilion, but I do just wish it wasn't as busy so I could enjoy it. I love checking out the theater while I'm there in the France Pavilion in order to see if there's any updates to the costumes that they have. They have a Beauty and the Beast sing-along, which I went to for the very first time just last year, and it was fun. It was fun. It wasn't like the best thing I've been to. It wasn't as much fun as the Frozen sing-along, but I did enjoy it. I do like seeing the details of the costumes even more. The other places I like to check out in the France Pavilion is all of the different French stores. I like the French merchandise. And there is a place, the Dior perfume counter. There's actually an artisan that comes and will engrave things on a perfume bottle for you. And I have gone multiple times to get that done, despite how expensive, how unnecessarily expensive it is. However, every time I've gone, I think very thankfully for my pocketbook, he is not going to be there on the days that I'm going to be there. So I miss out on getting an engraved perfume, but it is one of the things I would like to get in the future. I, of course, like to go and check out Remy, especially now that there is a single rider line. This is a ride, though, that gives me pretty bad motion sickness, which is kind of funny, but I do like it, and I do love that there is a single rider line. I can't believe that people would wait in line for some of these rides. I just can't, I don't know. It's fine. You do you, baby bobbity boo. But I just don't understand waiting 90 minutes, 90 minutes plus 180 minutes for a ride when there's just so many other things to explore and do and just walk around and notice. So the fact that there's a single rider line, chef's kiss. I love it. I also love this crepe restaurant, the sit-down restaurant, because it is a great restaurant to go to before I start indulging in all the food festival things. Then we're going to walk on over to Morocco. In between France and Morocco, there's often a place where there is a food festival booth. In the last couple food festivals, it's been Encanto themed, and especially during the Flower and Garden Festival, there are some beautiful trees and flowers and plants around that area. So if I can, I'll stop by there and then go to Morocco, which is just the most beautiful pavilion. It is so well done. Every time I'm there, I see a detail that I have never seen before. Do you know that there is a whole gallery that is there that you can go and take a look at? Here's the thing. There are gallery spaces in every single one of the pavilions, but a lot of them haven't been updated since COVID, and they used to be updated very regularly. So I would love to see that museum programming come back to these spaces, because I do think that Morocco is missing the interpretation of the space as detailed as the space itself. The other thing here is that you can meet Jasmine, which is a little frustrating because of geography. So Agrabah is nowhere near Morocco. Morocco is a real place, but Agrabah is not. But if we were to place it somewhere, it is not in North Africa. But I think whoever made the decision to put Jasmine there was nah, no one will really know the difference. It's on the other side of the world. It's exotic. It's brown. It'll work. So what you'll notice is that it'll say that Jasmine is visiting Morocco from a magic carpet ride, which then makes sense in canon, but I don't know if everyone really gets those details. So it's a little frustrating, but the space that they have her in, if you've never met her, is so beautiful. It is so well done. There are so many pictures and renderings of different lamps and things like that. It's a really, really cool world they made for her. If you've ever done the meet and greet of Winnie the Pooh in the England Pavilion, it's like the same level of set building that they have created for Jasmine. I actually like the Jasmine set much better, but it's that kind of a level of set building, and it's really cool in there. So you should go check it out, and then also just be reminded that Agrabah is nowhere near Morocco in real life. I also really love non-alcoholic drinks, and there's a really great drink you can get here in Morocco, which is a honey mint tea. You can get it as a slushy too. You can also get it as with a shot of alcohol, ironically, for a North African, mainly Muslim country. It is delicious and nice and cooling, and I love to get it during a hot day and be able to walk around. There are times where I've literally just made a stop there to get that drink and then went back to whatever I was doing because it is such a cooling drink. All right, after Morocco, we continue around World Showcase by going to another beautiful pavilion, which is Japan. Oh my God, I love Japan. Japan also has a really cool exhibit space, and since before the pandemic, they had it on cutesy culture, kawaii culture, but I have seen other exhibits in there, and I'm really, really hoping that one day soon they will change it again because it's really cool to be able to go in and find these little spaces of learning. I also just really, really love the store there. Oh gosh, I hope this episode isn't a whole episode of back in 2019, but back before the pandemic, I did find that they had a much broader range of merchandise in there. I haven't been as excited about the merchandise in there over the last couple of years as I used to, but it's a great store to walk around. I love the new restaurant too that's right above that store, the one that is kind of fast casual, and you can get one of the things I love getting is a make your own sushi platter, and it's just so fun to just put together little configurations of food, and especially when you're there solo, it kind of just feels very kid-like, which I just really appreciate, which I really appreciate. Also, when I was at this restaurant, I saw Amy Bruni, who was, I guess, the host of Kindred Spirits, which is a paranormal investigation show. I say was because I don't think the show is happening anymore, but she does some other paranormal stuff, and I know she's a big Disney fan. It's funny because she also posted pictures of a Hawaiian trip that she was on when she went to a cat sanctuary, and my sister, who watches Kindred Spirits along with me, she's like, oh my God, this woman and you guys would be best friends. So when I saw her at the restaurant, I didn't go up to her and say hey, we should be best friends, but I did go up and said that I enjoyed her work. All right, let's go over to the American Pavilion. So I've never seen the show in the American Pavilion. I just don't think I need to, I guess. But I know some other people who said that I don't need to either. That it has a really weird narrative that's not entirely historically correct. So I have never seen that narrative, but I have been in that space multiple times because there is a amazing exhibit on Indigenous art and culture, Indigenous peoples of the Americas, specifically the United States of America, that is just so well done. And I guess that also hasn't changed since 2019, but I don't mind that as much. I don't know why. Maybe because the smaller galleries seem like they should rotate, like they're on a topic that should rotate, whereas this seems more permanent. They also have an exhibit right now on paintings that the former President George W. Bush did of veterans, which is pretty cool. They had an exhibit there of jazz music related to the movie Soul, and that was in 2019. So it's always nice to go see that space. Plus, you can hear the Voices of Liberty, and they have new costumes. I know some of you were very optimistic about those costumes. I was not, and feel the same way when I saw them in person. Also, on the second floor of the American Pavilion, which you probably haven't been to because that is where Club 33 is. A place I may have actually seen. Okay, moving on. The bathrooms are also really well known in the American Pavilion because of how large they are and usually well kept. And I remember using these bathrooms when I had to use a scooter on a trip once, and I thought I would be able to use the scooter in the bathroom, that I'd have enough leeway, and I totally didn't, and I just kept banging into walls and laughing hysterically, and I must have looked crazy. So I just parked my scooter outside and then hobbled into the bathroom, and there you go. The Regal Eagle, the barbecue restaurant that I still think of as a new barbecue restaurant, is also in the American Pavilion. I've never eaten there actually because I'm usually focused on food festival stuff or have eaten enough already. So it's definitely someplace that I really want to try. Let me know what you think the best food is there if you have tried that. All right, now we're going to move over to Italy. So one of the things that I really love about the Cultural Ambassador program at Disney. So the Cultural Ambassador program at EPCOT specifically is where they hire people from specific countries to work in the pavilion and represent their country. And what I find hilarious is how much how much culture you get from those cast members in particular. So in the Italy pavilion, I have met cast members who are really just focused on flirting with each other, with arguing, and with not caring about the Americanization of their culture at all. And I say all of that with the utmost respect. I'm not criticizing these cast members at all, but it is so funny because in the Japan pavilion, for example, I would never, ever, ever see a cast member close down a register in order to follow an attractive cast member into another room. I was am I watching some sort of 1960s Fellini film? What is happening here? So, yeah, the Italy pavilion. I also have mentioned on the podcast that my sister lives in Italy. Her husband's Italian. Obviously, all her in-laws are Italian and everything as well. So whenever I'm in the Italy pavilion, I often will call them and be like, look, you could be here. And they're like, no, you could be here. And yeah. Yeah. Anyway, when I had that trip when I had to use the scooter, I had hurt myself while I was in Italy because of all the cobblestones and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. So when I did this trip after my Italy trip, which was 2 years ago, this week actually, when I was in Epcot, I was able, the scooter was really important, but there were a few times, like I said, with the American Pavilion, I would have to get up and walk around. And in the Italy Pavilion, I remember I had to get up to do something. And I was like, why do I feel like I'm going to hurt myself again? And I looked down and it's because of the cobblestones. So yeah, I just got to be careful in Italy. I love shopping in the stores here in Italy. They always have such cute things. I love to buy little souvenirs and give them to my sister's in-laws, for example, or I think I have the most merchandise for a world pavilion, in my home. I have pot holders, coasters. My sister called me this weekend and she was wearing the t-shirt that I got her of Minnie Mouse wearing a Vespa. I've got this really cute skirt with a crinoline underneath that also has Minnie Mouse on it and that says Arrivederci, which is goodbye in Italian. So yeah, I just love walking around the Italian pavilion. I don't eat here, though, that much. I know people really love the food, but I've never been overly impressed with anything I've eaten in the Italian pavilion. I know that the Italian pavilion often has a bad reputation for food and the food festivals, but has a much better reputation for their pizza. Maybe it's just because we have a lot of really good pizza in Toronto, but I've never been overly impressed. I want to be. I would love to be, but I'm never that impressed. All right, so over to Germany. So, something I mentioned in an episode earlier this year is that train set, that Germany train set, actually was put up for one of the very first Flower and Garden festivals like 30 years ago. And it was so popular that they have kept it around since then. But it wasn't an original part of the Germany pavilion, it was part of one of the festivals, which I think is really cool. And I should say that of all the pavilions, Germany's the one I've spent the least amount of time in. In fact, the first time I went to the gift store was only last December, and I got this really cute mug that if you are a Patreon member and you watch the conversations I have with people, sometimes I'm drinking out of that mug in the conversations. I love that mug so much, actually, but I've never spent a lot of time in the Germany pavilion. I'm not really a fan of German food. There aren't a lot of things about German culture that I think of like immediately as an aesthetic that I'm that interested in. So, yeah, I haven't spent a lot of time, but I regretted that when I got this mug. I can't even remember what made me go into the store in the first place because I didn't go for the mug, but I left with the mug, as is often the case with a lot of the Disney stores. But it is definitely a store or pavilion that I want to spend more time in. And when I'm there next time, I also really want to make one of those pieces of glass art that you can make. And I'm just really surprised that I haven't spent more time there. To the outside of the Germany pavilion is a wishing well where you can meet Snow White. And I actually have a really, really great memory of that from when I went with a boyfriend like 20 years ago. And I was waiting to meet Snow White and it started to rain and everyone like ran underneath like something so that, she didn't get her makeup. It didn't come running off. And because she ran away and everyone ran with her, I was like standing there in line and I missed my place in line and I just felt so upset. And it was just this really interesting moment, speaking of like time traveling and layering memories, when I immediately felt like I was like 4 years old and got like skipped over in a line. And so I just really think fondly of that memory as I walk by that wishing well because of the ways that Disney can really tap into these like different childhood selves, like these different selves at different points of your life. And even though it was like a sad moment, I didn't get my photo with Snow White because it was raining. It was nice to have space to be like a child in that moment, despite being, in my mid-20s or whatever. All right, now we're going to keep walking. We're going to go past the outpost, which represents the whole of the African continent. And this seems very tokenistic and not great. We all know, right? We know. Now, of course, there's Animal Kingdom where there is a whole Africa land, but we all know that the representation of the continent of Africa isn't great at EPCOT, right? But as we walk past that towards the China Pavilion, we're going to go over another bridge. If we're walking towards China and you look to your right, not to the left where the fireworks would be, but rather to the right where there is a waterway that's basically like an entry and exit for barges for the fireworks. There's just like a waterway that's like an alleyway. If you go past this at night, definitely take a look because all of those trees will be lit up with white birds. All those birds that are trying to get your French fries and things like that all day long, they all live in those trees and it is awe-inspiring, for lack of a better word, awe-inspiring to see all of these birds sleeping there for the night, and it's really quite beautiful. I just love so much these places at Disney that you see the nature in all of this structured design, and this is one of those places for me. All right, now we're going towards China. The China Pavilion is so beautiful. I love it so much just because of how bright it is. I'm very much a gal that loves color, if you didn't know that already. And so to be able to be in this space that's just so full of these bright colors immediately, like before you even move into any buildings is just really amazing. I also love that you can meet Mulan here. I've met Mulan outside. I've met Mulan inside. In fact, 20 years ago when I met Mulan inside, she didn't even have a character attendant and nobody was like coming to see her. She was just like walking around kind of bored. And I was like so thrilled to see her. So I love that they've brought her outside so that more people are able to see that she's there. There's a character attendant and it's a much more structured meet and greet because she's such a great princess. Is she a princess? She's such a great Disney woman. She's one of my favorites. Girl power and all that. I love walking through the China Pavilion and really feeling like you're walking through an old ancient Chinese street. I love looking through the store and seeing if you can find or I can find something special. 20 years ago, I got my grandmother a blue lucky cat that, although my grandmother has passed, I still have that cat today. And it's funny. I mean, funny, I don't know. Maybe it's funny, but we all thought my grandmother really loved cats. So for every holiday, birthday, etc., we would always get her a cat thing. And like a year before she died, she was like, I don't really love cats that much. So yeah, that's a little heartbreaking, but she did love the cat that I got her because I was her favorite and she was mine. So I always go to that same store and just give my grandmother a little mental hello. One of the other things I really love about this pavilion is that during the Festival of the Arts, they have little characters that are tucked away in the different, drawn on the walls and things like that in different locations. And I always just think of like Mushu here, and then the little cricket there, and little brother the dog over here. And I really think of that a lot in the China Pavilion, more so than any other pavilion, which is kind of funny. Sometimes I'll get an iced tea at the China Pavilion, but I've never really eaten any food, other than at the food festival booth, of course, because it's really just like westernized Chinese food that is kind of the same that you can get in a mall. And I'm sure it's good, but, we're at EPCOT. There's a lot of other places you can go and eat. Next is Norway. I wish there was just more at Norway. I wish there was just more and more and more. I keep thinking I'm missing something. I'm not, but yeah. I know there's a lot of people that are really sad that Maelstrom's gone. I guess I'm sad about that. I don't think the Frozen ride is that great. I've only done it once and I was like, oh, okay, all right, I can miss this. So I guess I'm missing something at Norway, but I'm not quite sure what it is. I do really love the building that they built for the Anna and Elsa meetup. I think that the details in the queue are just amazing. And there's also a PhotoPass photographer at the end where you can just go in and take some pictures and you don't need to meet the princesses. So go and check that out. Finally, we have Mexico. I know a lot of people really love Mexico for the margaritas and the tequila. I'm not a drinker, so that's not what I go for. I love this pavilion so much. I've said that a lot in this episode, haven't I? Because I love that it's inside. I love that it is so encapsulated. They have built a world in this building, and I love that it's nighttime. I love that it's a festival. I love that there's the water ride. I love there's a restaurant in it. I just love all of that so much. And I've never eaten here. It's on the list of places to eat. I have ate at both of the restaurants that are outside this pavilion, but this is another place that I just feel like is so world building. And they do have some interesting exhibits related to Coco and the Day of the Dead. And when I've been there, sometimes the technology works because it's an interactive exhibit. Sometimes it doesn't. But even if it doesn't detract from the overall experience of being in the pavilion, which I love so much. All right, we'll go over to Canada. You might know from other episodes, I have some issues with Canada. The big building that you see, you might think it is the Parliament buildings or like the Canadian version of what you might call the White House, but no, no, no. It is a hotel. It is a hotel. And yes, it is connected to the Canadian history of the railway, but does anybody know that? Um, I don't know. There's a lot of things about the Canada Pavilion that I don't really love, and it's based on the fact that, well, I talked about this with the Dapper Danielle actually, that like Canada just kind of dropped the ball on really sponsoring and supporting a really cool pavilion. So I always am just like, wah, wah, wah. But I do love to go over to the cultural ambassadors and say hi from Canada as well. The other thing I actually really love about the Canada Pavilion is that there's a stage where there's a band that will play. Whenever I've seen the band over the last year, because the band changes, of course. Whenever I've seen the band over the last year, it's a francophone band, so it's from a French region or a French province in Canada, and it's a very multicultural, diverse group of musicians, and I really think that that reflects Canada so much, this cultural and ethnic diversity that I just think is a huge area of strength for us. And so I just really like that too, to be like, yeah, that's Canada. That's the Canada I know. And then we're back at the England Pavilion. But before actually we get to the England Pavilion, there is a space where there's a Joffrey's cart between Canada and the United Kingdom. There's a Joffrey's cart there, but always take a look at that area because sometimes there are doors that are open to a big building at the back. And if those doors are open, definitely go and take a look because this is where they often will do character training. So they're going to bring out characters that are different than kind of the normal characters that you see. So the people who are friends with these characters, so the cast members who are training to be characters in a costume, can get some feedback on the way they act, the way they interact with guests, and things like that. So if you ever see those gates open, go and take a look. I have met such cool characters there. I've met Geppetto, I've met Baloo, I've met King Louie. They also had Winnie the Pooh there one time, which is not a rare character, but is a favorite for a lot of people. So definitely go whenever you see those doors open to see if you can see some rare characters because it's so great to get a hug from a character, even if you're there by yourself, even if you're there solo. And they love it too. So go. Do not worry that you're there by yourself. I love the England Pavilion. I love walking along the streets. I love going into the tea shop. I love going into the shop that's connected to the tea shop that often has Alice in Wonderland and Mary Poppins merchandise. I will look at the Rose and Crown where I can get a delicious iced tea and wish that I could get that iced tea to walk around with. I can't. I've tried multiple times, but you'll be happy to know or not, that I've been able to find that tea in Toronto, and now I can make a Lady Earl Grey Twinings iced tea, and that is what I've been drinking all September long as I am working towards a deadline. And now we're back, and I can get on the Skyliner and go back to my hotel and take a little nap before I come back and do it all again. And yeah, what a great day. What a great solo day. And I'm glad that you came with me for this. So what's your favorite part of EPCOT? Please let me know. It's really easy to comment on YouTube. So let me know what your favorite part of EPCOT is. Did I miss it? I didn't talk about half of the property. So what's your favorite part of World Showcase? And what is your favorite part of EPCOT in a larger way that I didn't talk about today? All right, everyone. Till next week. Bye. Hey Solos, it's Samantha. I hope you enjoyed this episode and all the episodes of Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. You can reach me on all of the different social media. All of those links are in this description below. You can also listen to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube. It'd be really great if you rated, reviewed, and subscribed. It's really a wonderful way to let other people know about the podcast. And as you know, we also have a Patreon where you can get bonus content, you can get bonus episodes, you can get all of the videos of us doing the solo stories and a whole bunch more. So come and join us on Patreon. And thanks again for listening to the podcast. Bye.